Hi, I'm Sean, aka Wizard. Beer has always been a passion for me, from collecting cans as a kid, tasting the great flavors of craft beer as I got old enough, and eventually becoming head brewer. We're very lucky here in the state of Florida to have one of the most vibrant craft beer scenes in the country, and we're going to bring it right to you. So come on the journey with us. Maybe you'll learn some things, and maybe you'll even have a laugh. And of course, it'll be even more fun if we have a few brews with us. The brews, the brewers, and the beer culture. This is Drinking with Wizard. Cheers to you. Here we are again. We're in Newport Richey again, because I told you we were going to do a series. Last time Denny Keg, now we're at Cotee River Brewing. It's an amazing place. Obviously I've been inside. Beers are great. The vibe is great in Newport Richey. I'm telling you, after you see this show, you would definitely want to come to Newport Richey. Brian, the owner, is putting together some really cool beers. Let's go inside and meet Brian. Let's go. Cotee River Brewing, and this is Brian, the owner, and obviously bartender sometimes, or more times than not, right?
Sometimes, yes.
All right, so Brian, tell me where your address is. I know you're on Main Street. What's the physical address?
5760 Main Street, right in the heart of downtown, Newport Richey.
I'm drinking a red that you poured me, which is quite amazing, actually. I love a good Irish red. It's one of my favorite beers to drink, besides an IPA, and I'll rattle them off, but the red is a very important beer to make. So tell me a little about your red. It's pretty amazing.
Yes, this one's called our Rivers Bend Irish Red. It's a traditional Irish red, but we ferment with Newport Richey wildflower honey. So It gives it a nice, smoother finish at the end.
I was going to say, there is a subtle, it hits like an Irish red. So it has that malty and that slight bitter that an Irish red's supposed to have. But there is some kind of teasingly finish that's kind of interesting and sweet, and that's the honey. I know it's honey because I love to brew with honey, but that's, you're talking my language here with between an Irish red with honey. That's a great combo to me. So, right off the bat, I'm going to tell you this is one of my Wizards picks for the place is the Irish red, which is called Rivers Bend. So if you come up here, definitely try a Rivers Bend. It's an amazing beer. So cheers on this one. Cheers.
Thank you.
Such a great one. What are you drinking? I always like to know what the owner brewer's bringing, because that's probably a good beer.
Yep, I'm drinking our Main Street Pale Ale, which is a single hop, Citra hop Pale Ale. So it showcases the Citra hop in a couple different ways. So it brings out the nice citrusy flavors, and so it's really smooth and crisp. So good drinker.
I love, as a brewer, I love Citra hop. As a viewer, you might not know it, but you've probably had a beer with Citra in it. It's a little bit bitey, which is good, and it's a really good hop, and you do a really good job with that, I'm sure. I'm gonna have to try that one to make sure. That probably would be a Wizard's pick too. If he's drinking it, if that's his mainstay and that's what he drinks a lot of, it's probably a good beer. So, but you have some other stuff up there too, so some interesting ones. Like you have this one's really cool. You have a Citra hopped sour. Now, we've talked about sours in some previous episodes, but I don't think we've ever talked about a sour that's flavored with citra instead of like fruits and other stuff. So can you delve into that one a little bit and let us all know what's going on there? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, basically what we like to do is I take a beer that we already brew and we do a keg sour.
Okay.
There is a company out there that does a sour extract that's it's just a liquid, no flavor, it's just the sour part. So it makes us be able to take that and we can, this is our Main Street Pale Ale, is the Citra Hop Pale Ale, and we turn that into a sour.
So basically what you're drinking, but then it's a soured version of it.
Yes, a Berliner style.
Okay. Can we try a little bit of that for the
yes,
the
absolutely.
folks at home? See if I do a bitter beer face or if yes, same beer, pretty much.
But the profile changes.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I haven't had that one yet, but this definitely has a good sour. Wow, that's actually a fun beer. That's really cool. I mean, it's like a sour, and usually I get boysenberry or berries of some sort, but that's just citra. That's just a beer that's soured. So if you think you don't like, okay, so all you folks out there watching the show, and you think you don't like beer, but you like sours, come to Cotee and try this beer. This is a sour beer. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles and all the fluff and stuff fluff and puff that everybody else has in their sours. This is straight up, but it's soured and it's amazing. I mean, cheers to you on that one. That is a unique.
Thank you.
If you're looking for unique beers too, that's unique. And cheers to you. You drink the Main Street, but what are some of your other cool beers that you make that you would suggest to customers that come up?
We actually have a couple beers that we brew with tea. So that's one of my niches in the brewing world was.
Well, because you came from the tea shop, so.
Right. So with having the tea to my disposal, I can say I decided to make some beers with tea. So one of our big ones, as our first beer we brewed commercially, was our Market Fresh Wheat Ale, which is brewed with a herbal tea. It has a lot of different fruits and vegetables in it, but the flavor profile for a light wheat ale is it starts off with a little cucumber crispness, finishes with the orange, lemon, and lime because it has all that in there. It has a lot more ingredients, but it's got apples, tomatoes, cucumbers.
That is crazy. I got to try it.
Yeah.
I got to try it for you. I'm going to take one for the team and try one just so I can explain it to you. You want to pour me a little bit of that too? This sounds amazing. He had me with cucumber, but then he had to add all the other fruits and stuff in it. So, yeah, it's almost that's really cool beer. I definitely get the cucumber and the it's almost a saison at the point with the way it tastes, but it's a wheat. It's
a nice
good.
crisp wheat ale.
Oh, and then. By the way, I'm familiar with the tea, and if you've watched the shows, you probably are familiar with the teas too. If you watched the holiday show, one of the holiday beers we put in was Christmas in a Cup that we took from you and did the holiday show, and it was actually quite a hit because, and actually people were searching for that one flavor. They got all the cinnamon and nutmeg and even Jay was like, there's something here that I'm not familiar with. And I said, well, it was seep tea that we put in the fermenter. He's like,
black tea.
Like black tea. Black tea.
Probably got the tannins of the black tea in it.
Exactly. It was quite a favorite of the people during the Christmas show. So if you haven't seen the Christmas show, I know it's a little bit of it's a Christmas show, but we did discuss a lot of different beers, local beers, including one from Cotee River, which was Christmas in a Cup. And again, it was received with some tea. And that was, cheers to you with the infused tea versions. I mean, I think this one, Market Fresh Wheat with the tea and the Christmas in a Cup with the tea, I think you're onto something with it. It's a pretty cool vibe. It's unique, for sure. And not only unique, it's unique in a great way. So,
thank you.
Cheers to you.
Cheers.
Cheers to you. You're working with tea. How do you how do you deal with the tea? Are you just putting it in a fermenter, or how's that working?
Well, it depends on the style of the tea. If it's a black tea, I can't put it in the boil or anything like that because it'll bitter really bad. So a lot of the black teas, like our Engine 1 Smoke Porter, which I don't have on right now, it's usually comes out in the beginning of winter. Our Chocolate Covered Strawberry Porter, that one is a cold steep. So we cold steep it during the fermentation cold crash. So after fermentation, when cold crash happened, I put the sack of tea in there to just cold steep back in the day when we had sun tea.
Yeah.
Same idea. Yeah. Just cold steep, and then then like the Market Fresh that we went over, that one is actually put into the boil as a spice.
Okay. So there's a lot of sophistication to your use of tea. It's just not a simple process. You have to think about the tea you have and the beer you're making, and so there's different applications to tea, just as there would be the hops. Like some hops go in the boil, some hops would be better suited at the end of the boil versus the front of the boil or in the fermenter. So you're having a sophistication level with your tea at the level of kind of the hops.
Yeah. So it just depends on the style of tea to make it the best flavor for the beer.
That's awesome. And based on the ones that I've tasted, I think you're spot on your take on it. So, well, he's been doing tea for not longer. As a business, he's been doing tea longer than beer, but I think you've been brewing beer longer than you were messing with tea,
yes.
Right? Yeah, but
just incorporated both.
But yeah, as a long history of doing both, this is what makes Cotee unique. All different stages of the brew process, because he understands tea and beer to that level. And I'm telling you, you definitely want to come here and try. Not only for sure, his standard beers are amazing. I told you the Irish Red was a Wizard's pick already. And the tea adds a whole nother dimension. So you definitely have to try it. And cheers to you for your innovation and your creativity and blending two different interests together. And cheers to you. I got a gnome about the gnomes. So tell me about the gnomes. There's like gnomes sitting here.
Yes.
They're not freaking me out, but they're checking me. Are they judging me on my beer?
They're watching you drink. But no,
cheers to you.
Cheers. But my thing is with the gnomes is I like gnomes. I had a traveling gnome when I used to go camping a lot. But started off with
you like the yard gnome.
Yeah, it would travel with us. Yeah,
with you as a traveling gnome.
Yeah, and I'd take pictures of it in the grass.
Like
and
Travelocity.
post it up.
Like Travelocity.
Yeah.
Did you started? You might have been. Were you doing it before Travelocity, or you took it off of that?
I don't remember.
This guy is an innovator. Like he might have been doing the traveling gnome before Travelocity.
But no.
Cheers, cheers to that.
Yeah. To the gnomes.
Cheers to the gnomes. To the gnomes.
But no, I like gnomes, and I started off with like 2 years ago, Christmas, I did a gnome Christmas. I decorated gnomes all over the bar, all over the rafters, just gnomes everywhere. And that triggered the next, after that Christmas, the next year, people started bringing me gnome gifts. I have a ladder around the corner here that has all the gnomes on it.
Because they know you like gnomes.
That's right. But then, so then last year we had Gnomoween, which we had a Halloween where I had a gnome
This could go
onesie.
on forever.
But they just scare gifts.
This has gnome end to it. Gnomes, you got beer cans, but I see you have a few cool cans too. And then dear to my heart, if you watched the first show, you understand that I have a can collection and quite a few cans, maybe an obsession. So hopefully yours does. Well, I hope it does turn into an obsession. But where did the cans come from?
They were my dad's. My dad passed away a long time ago, like 16 years ago. Yeah. But my mom moved down to New Parichi from up in Spring Hill, yeah. And when she was moving, she had all these cans. So I was opening the brewery, and my mom said, "What do you want to do with them?" I said, "I'll put them in the brewery." So now I have my dad's can collection here. Just some older cans and different things.
I know some of them. I'm from Pittsburgh, so I see the old Prosnick Schloss. I see the Steelers, the Iron City, another great beer, mass produced. But yeah, good luck on your can collection. I started like that and ended up with over 13,000 cans. So I'm trying to find a place to display them. So if I ever open a brewery, it's going to have to be a freaking big brewery to display 13,000 1,000 cans. But,
which would be awesome.
but cheers to you and your
Cheers.
passion for cans and paying an homage to your father who
Yep.
thought that those were interesting to have. So
Yep.
And cheers to that. Cheers to you.
Very
And I got your
smooth.
23 mile.
Yep, that one's got a
7.7.
bunch of hops in it.
Yeah, no kidding.
So
Tastes good.
very floral.
Made you jump from home brewing into this whole fray of craft beer and owning a brewery?
Yeah, the big thing was making sure just opportunity came around. We were sitting here, me and my wife from this town. We opened up a tea room about 7 years ago, and that was our first business in town. And then we went from there, and it was like we were watching, actually, funny story, watching a city council meeting, and the city councilwoman spoke up about all the growth that was happening and said, only thing we need now is a brewery.
Well,
I looked at my wife and said, did you hear that?
he's calling my name.
And I already had a plan. Yeah, I already had a plan.
He said, didn't you hear him? He said, Brian, open a brewery.
Yeah, pretty much. And but I had a plan, and it was going to be like a 2-year out, but I made it faster.
Yeah.
So ended up being like
Jump
a
on
1 year.
Hey, you got to jump on it before anybody else, right?
Yeah,
So
I want to be the first.
and why do you want to be the first?
I wanted to pave the way. Grew up here. This was always a smoky bar town. A lot of boarded up buildings. And when I saw the opportunity to do something like this, I really thought that doing some research that there was a possibility of making the town have a little bit more growth to it and make people want to come to town because you have a craft beer brewery.
Right, for sure.
And some making it more personable. Nothing wrong with craft bars or anything like that, but
Right.
when you make the beer, people really get intrigued and come to try those flavors and stuff.
Well, I think you're right. I think that craft beer is always taken well by customers, and they look for something more crafted or local. And there's something here locally that people can really identify with right down the street. And you're a local guy that's from the community. Let's not to love and support that. So that's fantastic. So cheers to that. Cheers to the local guy.
Yeah.
Bringing it on strong. So cheers to you. So you also mentioned when we were talking earlier about the idea that there were a lot of boarded up places and smoky bars, and the vibe was different, and it definitely is, because when I come up here and I walk through, there aren't any boarded up places, and most of the places are kind of quaint and cute and small town America kind of stuff. So when did you see that transition?
The main goal was to revitalize. Being born and raised here, we wanted to see this town that had opportunity. You know, this building here was one of the boarded up buildings.
Huh. What was this before? Before it was boarded up?
Originally, this was the first grocery store in town. It was a gym when wrestling was big and stuff like that.
Gotcha, brother.
Not necessarily big
Studio wrestling? They were bouncing off the ropes?
Yeah, they had a big ring in here. But
maybe
then,
Hulk Hogan came up.
You never know.
It's amazing what you've done with the beers, and then the talk about the tea. I mean, there's a whole nother level to the tea, which this show will be just too long if we talked about how the tea aspect and what it does with beer. I mean, Ryan, you're quite amazing with what you're doing, honestly. So, cheers to you.
Cheers.
And by the way, if you didn't notice, Jay's in the shot on this one. So, hello, cheers to you.
Came out from behind the camera.
He wants to partake.
It's good beer. What can I say?
Yeah, you got to jump in.
Market fresh wheat.
The history of why you decided to put these up, and the vibe that you have in your brewery, and how the community's embraced your brewery overall.
Yeah, definitely. But the biggest thing is that all the pictures we got are from the Historical Society.
Oh, nice.
So we actually went to the Historical Society and talked to them, and they gave us access to like a place where we can go pick out the pictures we wanted. So we went on and found some cool river pictures of Cotee River. True name of the river is Cotee. So that's where the Cotee River comes from, by the way. So yeah, so history lesson in the works there.
If we didn't learn something until now, we definitely learned something here.
What was that again?
Cotee. So
Cotee.
yeah, so when we have that's where Chasco comes from too.
Oh, now we learned. Wow, double cheers! You got a double cheers on that.
Cotee. So Chasco and Cotee is all in there.
Any idea what that originally meant?
I forget. I don't want to say the wrong thing. It was from the Native Americans that lived
awesome.
here. So
That's amazing.
and we actually have a Indian burial ground in town too.
And the show is not always about beer.
We got some history.
We got some history.
history.
Yeah, exactly. Cheers to that. Cheers to you. Cheers to
Yeah, we,
everybody.
cheers,
I'm going to do the cheers it. This is important. Cheers.
Cheers.
About the history of the river name and how it's related to the Native Americans. We talked a little about Chasko. So are you involved in Chasko with the community, or is there some other aspect of the community you're involved with that you support in the
Yes.
Newport Richey area?
Yes. Right now, the first thing we did was our Engine 1 smoke porter. We did that for the Crew de Forte,
Right.
which is involved in education for kids on becoming a firefighter or something like that. So we did our smoke porter and a cherry smoke porter, and that run was $1 of each pint went back to their community.
Okay.
So I mean to their nonprofit.
Right.
So and then the other one was our low-quat blonde ale that we're going to be producing its release coming up here
That
soon.
sounds interesting. What's in that one? Let's
that
talk about the. We'll get to the community, but I'm all about the beer too. So what's in that beer? That sounds good.
Yeah. Well, loquat is an urban grown fruit. It grows in people's backyards and in parks and just
Okay.
So
Local.
yes.
Yeah.
So everybody knows of the kumquat. That's big
Yes,
in Dade
kumquat,
City.
yes, of course.
Loquat's not this. It's a more of a peach style fruit.
Ooh.
It has like a furry skin
Is it a
to
little
it.
sweeter than the kumquat too?
Sweet and tart, depending
Nice.
on the ripeness. So, so what we do is our local farm net that is about urban farming. They come and I tell them how much I need. They pick the fruit and give it to me, and I release the beer to promote their event, which is the Loquat Fest. I cut the loquats, I smash them, and I put them in the beer during the second steri fermentation, which is adding the flavor. And then we have our Loquat blonde ale. And then every pint that we sell for that goes back to the farm net that is all about urban farming, and also they provide the fruits and vegetables to like the small fruit stands, or like we have Rice Nutrition in our building. They provide fruit and vegetables there. It's about small urban farming.
Being a customer, like hearing that you're dedicating yourself to fresh local ingredients, and on the back end still reinvesting in your community, like
Yeah, that's
win-win.
awesome. That's a win-win-win. Stuff from a local organization or a local company. I wouldn't even call it a company. Local bee farm that supplies your honey, right?
Yes, for our Rivers Bend Irish Red, we go through the honey couple, and they provide a wildflower honey that is local Newport Richey wildflower honey, and we add that to the beer.
That does not get any more local than that. I mean, locally brewed, local sourced ingredients, both with what you talked about earlier, and then with the honey couple. And I've had the honey couple's honey before. They flavor. It's not really flavor. They condition and infuse their honey in so many different ways, and each one of them is amazing in itself. So yeah,
So you're basically telling us that your beer is essentially allergy medicine.
Well, yes, but if you're drinking the Rivers Bend Irish Red, it has honey in it, so
There you go.
local allergies.
And he's supporting the local bee population, which the bees, if you don't know, are like kind of important.
Yeah,
in the-
crucial.
Win.
For everybody. Win. I don't know. There's so many wins in that. Like cheers
Winning
to-
winner.
Cheers to the winning.
Cheers
Let's
to
keep
winning.
winning.
Cheers to honey and beer.
Honey and beer is
Local.
amazing. I'll cheers to that
Delicious,
every
guys.
single time.
Now when we see Dick, when he gets here, you say, "Oh, since we were talking about you, here you are."
Oh, yeah. Hey!
Dick in the house.
Dick in the house. I need a beer.
I'm gonna get you a beer.
Hi, I'm Dick Bean. I'm from Merrimack, New Hampshire. I'm a former Anheuser-Busch brewer for 34 years and worked in nothing but the brewing department. I came to Florida about 7 years ago when we inherited my wife's parents' condo, and about 5 years ago Brian opened a brewery down here, and I came down looking for something to do, just part-time to help.
So you're
And-
a snowbirder?
I'm a snowbird,
Yeah.
exactly. And I walked in and Brian said, well, I'd love to put you to work, but I just opened up and I have all of these people that were in your Founders Club So I said, well, if you need me, he said, everybody wants to, I gave everybody the opportunity to brew when they got here.
Right.
And he said, I said, well, if you need me, let me know. So he did get a hold of me at one point.
I was gonna say, a 32-year brewer maybe heads to the top of the list of the Founders Club when there's insurance agents and other people on that list.
He's been brought into that.
You've been brought into the fold.
But
Good for you, Dick.
I will say
Cheers to
that.
Cheers.
Cheers to Dick's indoctrination into the craft beer because models. So cheers to you. So hold on. So I got a question for you, Dick, before you go too far. So you obviously did a lot of mass-produced beer with Budweiser. I mean, that's a long career with Budweiser. So you have a lot of knowledge with there. But then you come to work with Brian, and it's maybe a little bit smaller batches
I
than
would
at
say
Budweiser.
you're talking 100 gallons versus 450 barrels.
That's a big difference.
But
Oh, it's a slight difference.
I can tell you that the process is very similar.
Okay.
I think the one thing that we learned at the brewery is you have to be completely clean all the time. You cannot be at all. You've got to clean.
I think that's, and I think those are the first. I think those are the first 3 pages in the home brewer's guide to success. Is like
Exactly.
clean. You know, if you clean, it's going to be fine.
And I just remember coming into Brian, and the first day I came down to brew with him, and I was amazed how clean he was, how everything was, and I mean, he's super clean.
I think he's talking about your brew process.
Yes,
Yeah,
my brew
exactly.
process.
Yeah.
Yes.
And yourself too.
Yes.
He smelled.
I didn't smell bad.
But anyway,
Cheers to that.
cheers to not smelling.
Cheers to being clean.
this is from Clean Brewing and Clean Clothes.
Hey.
Are you saying you didn't clean that well at
Oh,
Anheuser-Busch?
At Anheuser-Busch, you could eat off the floors.
I'm sure you could. I
I mean
guarantee
that.
it.
August Busch would come over, and if he found something out of place, forget it. Even up in the brew house, there were like 8 floors.
Yeah.
There was no dust on the floors. The place was immaculate.
So how often did August? Was it August? What
And
generation?
he was the third.
August the 3rd. So how often did August the 3rd visit your?
He probably would come to our facility once a year
Okay.
because he had 12 breweries. But for some reason, he took a liking to Merrimack. It was the second smallest brewery, but it was kind of like his pet.
Uh-huh.
So he always did good stuff for us, and we always impressed him. He would come along and he'd come in like a regular guy. But I can tell you, I'll give you an example. I can remember when he was over in the packaging part where the conveyor belts are and everything.
Yeah.
He put his hand under a conveyor belt and there was a lot of black grease on it, and he took it, wiped it
Oh,
right on
boy.
the foreman's shirt.
Wow.
And he said, "This is unacceptable."
Yeah,
That's what it was like.
He's like a ship's captain, run a tight ship.
Exactly.
You
Yes.
know, you run a sloppy ship, it's going to sink. You run a tight ship, it's going to sail well. So
Yeah.
same with the business. So yeah, he didn't get to where he was being a pushover.
I came to work with Brian, and I enjoyed it.
So you had retired at that point from Anheuser-Busch. And what was your position at Anheuser-Busch at that point?
I was just a brewer.
Just a brewer.
I did everything in the brewing.
Just a brewer.
Just a brewer.
32 years, just a brewer. That's cheers to humbleness. I mean, you've probably seen everything and then some at Anheuser-Busch, but
Yes.
cheers to that.
And then I came down and started working with Brian, and I have to tell you, I didn't know a lot about craft brewing.
Yes.
You know, and I'm amazed that he was a home brewer for what, 13 years?
Yep, 13 years.
He
Yep.
came down here and he put this whole place together. I'm amazed. He got all the equipment. Thank God he was a design engineer because he knew what he was doing.
Yep.
And he did everything. And I'm just amazed at how good everything is.
So
And just so you know, there's no directions in the brewing world. There's
No,
not.
there is
There's,
not.
there's no.
No, I know.
They don't. You
I've been
order
working with them
equipment. There's
myself.
no
There's no
like.
pamphlet,
No.
instruction guide.
Figure it out.
Here is he didn't have any kind of a cooling system. So we would cool a brew in about 6 hours. And I said to him, Brian, you know, you can get a cooling system and you could cut your cooling time down immensely. He went and did that. and we can cool a brew in an hour and a half.
Yeah. So the efficiencies,
amazing.
the efficiencies that you knew at Budweiser,
Yeah.
and
We had an aerated
you were
cooler,
able to
basically.
help, even at the smaller scale, you can articulate.
We had an aerated cooler that was probably 6 feet long by 3 feet high, and it would be glycol on one side and beer on the other. Basically is what he's got up here, and it made a huge difference in cooling his beer.
Yep, it went down. Literally, it'll take 4 to 6 hours to cool down a beer before I can put it in the fermenter because it would just using city water. It took forever. Got the glycol, and now I'm at the point now where it's an hour or a little bit over.
You mentioned 34 years at Anheuser-Busch. I'm assuming in that like really long time you got to see the transition from like manual work into automation. Like what did that look like for you as a brewer?
When I started, I worked in the brew hall. There was a kettle, there was a mash tank, and there was a hop. There were 3 people that worked there, okay? They had a hop man.
Was it really?
and it was
Hold on. There were 3 people,
that
and how
worked
many gallons?
Just in the brew hall.
How many gallons was that?
450 barrels.
3.
Jeez, for 3
I mean 450 barrels. Okay.
Wow,
And
talk
what
about
you would do,
efficiencies.
I would come in on a Sunday night, early start up at 10 o'clock, and I'd have to go all the way up the floors and turn everything on. Then you would have thumb wheel, and you would get a recipe, and you'd have to set so many pounds of 2-row, so many pounds of 6-row, so many pounds of rice, and then you would start brewing like at 10:30, and by the time the people came to work at 11:30, 12 o'clock, you were well into the system of starting.
Right.
Okay. Then around 1992, I believe, we automated and they put in a control room. Now there are no people out in the brew hall. Everything is done out of the control room.
Push the button.
Yeah.
Push the button.
12,300 pounds of 6-row, and it's all done automatically. But we used to do that all by just with thumb wheels and everything.
Brian, because it's more hands-on,
Yeah.
more tactile, more sensory kind of thing instead of what you ended your career with Budweiser with.
I just really enjoyed doing this with him. He knows that.
Yes.
Did he let you stir the mash?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yep. He stirs a mash. That's the
You get-
most important
you get those-
part of the
you
brewing.
get those core muscles going with the mash.
I'm picking up the bags.
I can remember when we would mash in and they have
Did you
these-
used to stir?
What's that?
Did you used to stir at Budweiser?
Yeah. They had
They all-
big tanks. They had big, like almost airplane propellers that
Rakes.
would go around in the bottom.
Rakes, yep.
Big rakes, yeah. So yeah, it's been, I really enjoy brewing. He's brought brewing back into me.
So
And when he
that's what I was
said
going
to
to say.
me,
Does this revitalize and renewed your interest in
yeah,
brewing?
he said to me, I can't believe after all those years you haven't been a home brewer. And I started thinking about it. I said, maybe I should do that.
Okay,
Now I'm loving it.
So Dick, in your vision, what is your favorite beer that you want to brew?
Real big IPA guy, and the only reason I'm not is my kids are, is because when I started, we didn't have any of that.
Right.
Okay, and then they started that probably after I retired in 2009. They started
The big, heavy, hoppy beers,
the
right?
hoppy beers. So I wasn't brought up that way. My kids love IPAs.
Right,
and ales.
okay.
I do like blonde ales, and I like mango cot.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And I was telling Brian, I said, there's been a lot of people that have come in here and said to me, do you guys have any like light beers? And a lot of these beers are light, but not to women. Women are looking for like 4%. Their husbands will come in for an IPA. The girl will say, do you have any light beers? Like
Right.
4%? And we don't. And Brian's going to work on that. I know he
Right.
is.
First craft beer that you drank that got you stoked on craft beer and made you realize this is a venue you want to continue in?
Brian, you
For
should
me,
get it.
mine actually was Killian's Irish Red. Was that not? I guess not really craft, but
Right.
it was a red ale, and that I really wanted to reproduce a Killian's.
So your red is
Based off of that idea of
yes.
style.
Everybody does their own take on something,
yeah.
but that's where. Okay,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
So, but that was I've always loved craft beer.
And I like the pale ale because up in New England, Tuckerman's up in North Conway makes a really good pale ale.
Yeah, that was your first take on
That
like
was-
the first.
Yeah, and there's a place in New Hampshire called Woodstock, the Woodstock Inn, and they They're probably next to the shipyard up in New Hampshire. They're
Okay.
probably they've been brewing since like 1986.
Yeah.
And what the man that's the brewmaster there used to be one of the foremen I worked for at Budweiser. And now he's the brewmaster.
So you're the foreman you work with? That's awesome. It's just like everybody else. We're just drinking beers together, right? I mean, whether we're the master brewer or we're the apprentice, we're all
Cheers
just
to
drinking beers.
great beer and great drinking together with friends.
Yeah,
Right.
cheers.
Cheers to that.
Cheers.
And cheers to you. Hey, thanks for watching. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you can stay up to date on all things Drinking with Wizard. See you next time. Cheers.